Hey wrestling fans, it's Sean from the Scumbags Wrestling. Have you checked out our latest t-shirt design? It's inspired by our friends over at London Comic Con. Nigel Lewis of NCL Studios came up with this amazing design of a comic book cover. It features 22 stars of the Ontario independent wrestling scene, including Cody Deaner, Jody Threat, Casey Spinelli, Tyson Dukes, Brent Banks, Tarek, Sebastian Splag, Alala Beefcake, graduates of the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory, and many more. You can get your t-shirt for just $30 or buy the poster for $15. Proceeds from this sale are going to go to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto on behalf of Steven's Wrestling Journey. Steven's an 8-year-old fighting Chiari malformation, and they're searching for a cure. You can contact me either through our Facebook page, Scumbags of Wrestling, or email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Get yourself a great t-shirt with an amazing design and help a wonderful cause at the same time. So contact me today and get your shirt or poster.
ABCD!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Warfare Tournament. On this week's edition, we're doing the King of Kings, and we're going to run down 16 of the top kings of wrestling. And this week, there's going to be some interesting matchups. But before we get into those, we have our panel for this week. All the way from Toronto, we have Steven. How are you doing today?
Good. It's getting humid here, but it's beautiful. We had protests all weekend, but no riots, so we're good.
Yeah, it's about the same here in London. And from Niagara Falls, we got Jonesy. How are you tonight, Jonesy?
I am COVID-tastic.
Very nice. Very appropriate for our times that we're in.
Yes.
Stamp us. And normally Chris Maloney would be with us, but he is on the other side of the keyboard and going to be providing some stats for us. And hopefully that will help on some of the choosing of this week's tournament, on some of the people. Maybe it will help influence some of the choices, being able to see some of those stats. Chris is putting up right now this week's brackets. And as you see, Steve Corino is going to take on William Regal in the first round, followed by King Booker against the King of Hearts, Owen Hart. Hacksaw Jim Duggan taking on King Harley Race. Stone Cold Steve Austin against Kurt Angle. King Barrett against King Haku. King Iokea, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Jonesy, if you want to correct me, great. Down with that. Taking on Jerry the King Lawler. Triple H against Bret the Hitman Hart. The King of Awesome, Edge, taking on the Macho King, Randy Savage. So we're going to start off with this week's first round match number 1. I know, Steven, you'd kind of asked not to be starting this one. You want to get a feel for what's going on. I know, Chris, you've probably been doing some homework ahead of time after the brackets were released. So I'm going to have you start off with match number 1, Corino versus Regal.
I didn't actually do a lot of homework on this because a lot of these guys I was able to see most of their careers as kings and that. So, mind you, Steve Corino, I didn't even know he was a king. That was his moniker. So, but I would still say William Regal, for me, it didn't do nothing for him being a king. He was already great before that. and the style match should probably turn into. Personally, I think Steve Carino would make a much better king than William Regal. William Regal, he's the man's man. He didn't need to be king, but I think Steve Carino needs this one. So I'm going for Steve Carino.
Okay. Just to also verify on our topic, also for those paying attention and following along with our thought process, we are basically going to narrow it down for the time that they were the king of the ring. We can bring up the fact of what they were doing beforehand, before they became the king, and see if that helped improve their status or not. As Jonesy just pointed out, he didn't really feel that the king moniker helped William Regal. So, compared to what he had been doing before. And so that's going to be some of our thought process as we go through these matchups. I'll go next and allow Stephen to be the tiebreaker, because I'm going to go with William Regal as the king of the ring. He ended up bringing back that essence of what the king of the ring sort of was supposed to be. Maybe in a way he did it in a comedic way, but beforehand, the last couple of kings before him were just there. Like, they even put it, I think, on the shelf for a couple of years before bringing it back, where he ended up winning, I believe, during essentially a Raw tournament over a few weeks. It wasn't in your typical WWE pay-per-view of the King of the Ring, but just the essence that he brought to it, the comedic value, but his British heritage, putting a spin on the King moniker in that regards. I got to go with William Regal advancing over Steve Carino. And so, Steven, you get to break the tie in round number 1. Match 1.
And this is purely because I've seen a little bit of Steve Carino, but not enough of his work to really judge. And I was kind of busy with some stuff going on today, so I'm going William Regal just clearly because I know a little bit of his king reign. So William Regal to move on.
Okay, so we have our first match done. And you said King William Regal going on. I'm just marking it down on my paper. I know that Chris is doing in the background with the brackets, and we'll see that at the end of the first
I'm a little disappointed Steve Carino didn't go through. Steve Carino told me personally to go F off at an event. Sean was there, so that hit soft spot in my heart.
And now Carino's working in NXT along with William Regal, creating the next generation. So. Our next matchup is going to be King Booker against the King of Hearts, Owen Hart. For me, I'm going to start it off. This was a really hard decision for me to end up doing, because when you look at everything that Booker T had done, survived global wrestling as G.I. Bro, made it all the way through Harlem Heat, became multi-time world champion, 5-time. I think maybe by that time he was 6, with one WWE title reign, or actually he got his title reign, I believe, during this run of his 6th one. He really came out of his shell and created a new character and did the whole accent that went along with it, the pinky in the air. He had his court with, I believe, Regal and Finlay. He had Charmel as his queen, and really did an amazing job for him. Like, this is why it was so hard, because he's going against Owen Hart. It's Owen freaking Hart. Owen was always in the shadow of his brother. And he had an amazing opening match at WrestleMania 10 against his brother, getting the victory, even though Brett went on to become the champion afterwards. But getting then into the King of the Ring tournament, getting out of his brother's shadow, he made the King of Hearts really established thing. I think he did better with the King moniker than his brother did. In all honesty, and he embraced it and did the whole Slammy Award winning Owen Hart, got the Anvil on his side. There was just so much to Owen making it to that next level and being in the main event against his brother that I'm going to go with the King of Hearts, Owen Hart, to move on. Steven, you get our second pick.
So I can give you one guess who I'm picking, because if anyone follows Thursday Night Throwdown, I hate comedy wrestling. So I would not pick Booker T, unfortunately. It's just he did nothing for me. That I'm picking Owen Hart because it took him from someone who you were like, oh, he's kind of there, to that next level, teaming with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So unfortunately, Jonesy, your pick's not going to matter, but I would love to hear what you say, but I'm going Owen Hart.
As far as who needs it, Owen Hart. But Booker T, I think, did do a better job with it than Owen Hart did, even though Owen Hart did a job. Booker T made it fresh, like new. He added more stuff that you can do with it. Mind you, I think Owen Hart would be a throwdown to win the whole thing if he would have died when he was a king.
Yeah, it was a couple of years after that.
But if he was still going by that at the time, I think that would, But for me, it's Booker T. And I didn't really know you did not like comedy wrestling.
Oh, Steven is a huge downer on the comedy.
And that's fine.
I a little bit, but when you make it stupid and I can't believe it,
and over the top,
I'm over it.
Like baby oil and
how did you survive 80s wrestling?
I was under 10, so yeah, so I wouldn't have. But now,
because if you ever seen a midget match, that's comedy. Like,
yeah, but I was under 10, so I thought that was the greatest thing ever.
For me, the difference is when you're doing comedy wrestling, a guy like Omega, he might be annoying. No, he might be annoying, but he's the best at it. He just is. Because he can wrestle. He can back it up. Anyways, continue. That's for another day.
That's like saying Kenny Omega's the best piece of shit out there. It doesn't make it good.
Well, it is good because he sells. People love him. You don't have to like him. It's just like Sean not liking Celine Dion. You can't say that she's not amazing here and knows what she's doing. That's what I mean. Like, to me, saying Kenny Omega is a piece of shit, that's like, no, he's not. As far as how he's doing the comedy wrestling, yes, but overall, his wrestling, I much rather watch Kenny Omega. He can go against anybody and make it good. Anyways, continue.
Are we talking Japan, Kenny Omega, or AEW?
Even AEW, yes, it's silly, but he still can back up his wrestling.
No, we can't.
Yes, he can.
We're going to go off on a tangent that is not made for
That's okay. Hey, I watched that last pay-per-view they did. Yes, it was a lot of silly. But I think they did a better job than WrestleMania did with what they did, because they didn't take it seriously, but they also had great stuff. I'm sorry. Matt Hardy.
Very good. Speaking of Matt Hardy, though, Chris mentioned that King Maxwell did not make it into this list. I've asked Chris to maybe get me a list of kings that are honorable mentions that we can talk about briefly between the first and second round as we get everything put together. But yeah, so Owen Hart moves on in a 2-1 victory, and that gives it to Steven for Hacksaw Jim Duggan against King Harley Race.
Well, I mean, this is a tough one because I actually was a huge Jim Duggan fan. growing up, but I think it's funny because they actually feuded over this. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going Harley Race just because I think he couldn't go in the ring anymore when he got the moniker. So it took his character who he couldn't be Harley Race like he was, made him relevant. Because if you take King away from Harley Race, he's a below, and we're talking WWE at this point, he's a below mid-card wrestler. You even with Bobby Heenan, he would have been lower mid card. With the moniker King, he went to that next mid card, but still higher mid card to feud with Jim Duggan. Took him to the next level in the WWE, and I didn't find Jim Duggan. It took him to the next level, so I'm going Harley Race.
Jonesy, your thoughts
All
on
right.
Duggan versus Race?
It's a bit of a hard one. Race didn't. I didn't think Race needed it, but after everything that was just said, yeah, I agree with the fact that he wasn't strong in the ring anymore. But I would have liked to seen Race used better. They should have had him just wrestle a few times against the big guys and left it at that. To me, having him as that was embarrassing for him, because personally, when I first seen him come into WWE, I didn't watch the other stuff, so I didn't know a lot about him. So I just kind of was like, "Who's this like jobber?" You know. But and Duggan, I don't think he did much with it. He didn't need it as far as crowd popularity. For me, I don't really care who goes through this. So I'll give you the tiebreaker.
So you're going with King Duggan and one vote for Race. Well, Steven had some really good points on the fact that, and same with what Chris said. When I started watching Harley Race, I saw him against JYD at WrestleMania 3. I saw him do his headbutt through a table that Hogan was on. I think it was on a Saturday Night Main Event. And then he was gone. And that's when the King moniker got put over to Haku. He came back at a Royal Rumble. They fought for the King title. Bobby basically turned his back on him in favor of Haku. But I think he also returned after, maybe just before that, as part of a Survivor Series team. And yeah, he was just a shell of himself, unfortunately. But because of who he was, it was like almost a secondary title without it being the Intercontinental title that put him where he should be if you look at his NWA career. Duggan, on the other hand, he got to wear a crown, put a crown on a 2x4, and wave around a cape. I think he was kind of embarrassing as a King and took away from the Hacksaw Jim Duggan tough guy act that he had. I think I also remember him painting his face and wearing the crown with Demolition at a SummerSlam or something like that. But it was all more just costume than anything else. So I guess I would say the crown helped Harley Race more than it did Duggan as far as holding it. Of course, people have different perspectives depending on when they hopped on the wrestling train and started watching. But I'm going to go with Harley Race. Moving on to second round, he's definitely going to have a hard time getting any further because of how this is. And that's the magic, I guess, of our randomizer, where you get a tough matchup such as Booker and Owen, where ideally they should be able to both clear the first round. But when they're against each other, it's something tough. And then you get something like Duggan and Race where you're like, eh. But Harley Race is moving on to the second round.
I predict this is our first 3-0 on this one.
Well, that brings us to match number 4. And Jonesy, you get to start this. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle.
With Austin, that's when he launched himself. I don't think he needed. The thing is he needed that day, but after that day, he didn't need the crown or any of that. And the fact of who heat, it was just a great night. Kurt Angle, again, I don't think he needed it. I would go with Austin just because of 316, just because that was the birth of that. That was supposed to be his, crowning the kayfabe stuff, and then he kind of turned it real as far as making it actually mean something. So, Austin's for me.
Yeah. I totally agree with what Steven was saying with the fact it's going to be 3-0. Obviously, Austin, he's the first guy that I bought merchandise for when I went to the first event and stuff like that. But Kurt Angle, it unfortunately helped him get more into the goofy territory of doing the crowning, and his crown almost looked like one of those imperial margarine crowns that you saw in the 80s with the margarine commercials, and just it was there to make him goofy more so than be serious. Steve Austin, if you look back at everything that happened leading up to it, it was a weird chain of events that led to a magical night, as you put, Jonesy, because he wasn't even supposed to be in that tournament, or if he was in the tournament, he wasn't going to make it as far as he did. But because of the lovely curtain call, and he was able to ditch the ringmaster gimmick. He did the stuff with Bret Hart at Survivor Series and was starting to get some momentum in that regards. Everything just fell into place. Hunter was pulled out of the tournament. He was given the green light to be the winner of it. The preaching of Jake Roberts, the injury that he sustained with Mark Marrow, kicking him in the face and coming back, and he had to quickly think on the fly of some sort of acceptance speech. And because it was Jake, they talk about your Psalms, talk about your Proverbs, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, "I just kicked your ass." That fell perfectly, and he was given that stage to launch that, and the sky was the limit. After that, he was the highest seller in merchandise, ticket sales, probably put an ass in every 18 inches, and just totally helped WWE rebound from the ass whooping they were getting from WCW with the 83 weeks of losses to Nitro. So had it not been for that one night, and thank God the curtain call happened, but if it hadn't been for everything falling into place, who knows where the business would have been today. But it was right place, right time. Steve Austin, true king of the ring.
Well, I don't really know what else to say after what Sean just said. He kind of just said everything. But to me, that was Austin's crowning. That was the takeoff point. So I'm voting Austin. We can kind of move on because Sean kind of said everything.
And let's just thank God that he did not put on that goofy crown. Look at all the goofy crowns that have happened since. Owens was really horrible. The Triple H's was horrible. He kept on stomping on it, and they kept on giving him new ones every time he turned around because he kept on destroying them. Sheamus had antlers.
Fuck. There's some really bad ones. I mean,
thank God nobody attempted to put a crown on Steve's head. Or Doc Hendricks or Michael P.S. Hayes would not be with us today if he had attempted to crown him in any manner.
The only two I can think of that were any good, and it's two guys coming up, Lawler and Bret Hart's fit them.
Yep. So we'll get to those in just a couple minutes. Up next, match number 5 is King Barrett against King Haku. So
hold on, let's put a little asterisk on this. Barrett was my choice only because my original pick, we were going to ask to be on the show. So I just want to make sure that when we talk about people who are missing, someone who's missing, I picked, and I got overrode right up to the last minute because we were going to ask this person to be on the show. So I'm just
talk about that in their intermission then.
But I want people to know that he was picked as a last second.
We have intermission?
Well, between rounds.
Oh.
As we update our brackets, there's some honorable mentions that we can bring up, including the aforementioned pick of Stevens. But King Barrett versus King Haku. I think doing the crown for Barrett was good. It definitely took him from floundering, I guess, after the Nexus, which is celebrating their 10th anniversary of when they destroyed the ring and choked out Jason Roberts and everything the mayhem that happened from the season 1 NXT contestants. But that was 10 years ago this week. But after what happened with Cena almost destroying the Nexus from backstage, the crown was something to give Barrett as we still have faith in you. Here's something for you. But he's going against King Haku. This guy, Haku, toughest man that you ever have heard of. Like, when you talk legit tough guys, I'm pretty sure the guys that were in Tough Enough Brawl for All are happy that he was over in WCW at the time when Brawl for All happened, because there's talk that Haku has bitten somebody's nose off in a bar. Just insaneness. But when he was king, he was one of Bobby Heenan's top guys of the Heenan family. It's unfortunate that they really didn't do too much with him, to be honest. But yeah, I would definitely say King Haku over King Barrett. And Steven, your pick.
I mean, the problem is they changed Barrett from Wade Barrett to Bad News Barrett, didn't it? When he won the crown, I think. That's my recollection, my memory. So I feel like it took him, Wade Barrett, from someone who I could believe to a joke and a shit show. And Haku went up because he started fighting. Right after that, he had faced Hulk Hogan after he was given the king, and he defeated Harley Race when Race returned over the king. So it took Haku up to the next level, where I thought it took Wade Barrett down a level, because if they would have just named him King Wade Barrett, is it great? No, but at least it would have kept they could have done something. But when he won the King of the Ring and he became Bad News Barrett, I believe, didn't do anything for me. So I'm going Haku.
And Jonesy, is it a sweep or is it 2-1?
Well, everyone's picking Haku, which I agree with. Wade Barrett, I liked him when he first came in to the WWE. I thought he was on fire, and then fizzle pop, and they just ruined him. Haku, he just looked good in it, and he was tough as nails. So I don't think he necessarily needed it, but it helped him.
It definitely helped him after he was out of the Islanders tag team. Gave him something to do when Tama left. So yeah, it's 3-0 for Haku over King Barrett. Now, our next one, Is Steve. You get to start this one, unless you'd like to defer to Chris for some information on King Iakea.
Well, I looked at him, and in our group chat, it was told to me that he eventually became the guy in the Dungeon of Doom, so that automatically disqualifies him. And you can't actually. Jerry Lawler has been Jerry the King Lawler since early 70s, mid 70s. Up until this day, he's still known as the King. He was doing okay, but when he was given the King moniker, he literally became the King of Memphis for I don't know how many years of like he could still wasn't he the mayor of Memphis at one point? Like
He tried a couple times to become mayor.
like, but I mean, Jesus, like even right now, if you turn on Monday Night Raw, I don't know why you would, but normally he's on there. He's still Jerry the King Lawler. That's been his only gimmick. And it took him from mid card to superstar. And it's been, I don't know, 30, 40 years. It's been forever. So I'm going Jerry the King Lawler.
Well, as we see, Jonesy's getting some paperwork ready and limbering up for his rebuttal because Curtis Iakea was his pick. He news that Maloney is posting with us right now is saying that he passed away in 2010 at the age of 73 and was part of WWE and, as you said, the aforementioned Dungeon of Doom. Sullivan! But Jonesy, carry on.
Okay, well, I'm going with King Curtis, and I'll tell you why. First of all, if this is a match, there's no match for Jerry Lawler because Jerry Lawler, especially in WWE and stuff like that, he took the fall. He didn't need to win the match. I don't think he'd win, especially when it comes to the way they did storylines with him. He's a former WWF Tag Team Champion. Okay, Lawler doesn't have any big titles. He only has small promotional, not big stuff. He's actually been in a few movies. He was in a Stooge movie. Okay. Yes, he was in the Dungeon of Doom, and I thought he was good in that. As far as how terrible WCW was, he just makes it better because how over the top he was. I've seen some video of this guy. He looked much better in his older age than he did when he was doing that. He was also in the CFL for many years. He was in one of the NFL camps. And he's actually attached to royalty. So, I say it's Curtis Iakea. He actually deserves it and needs it more than Lawler does. And that's what the whole King of the Ring thing was, is give it to a capable guy and let him go with it. Yeah, Lawler doesn't need it. And Lawler would never get it, nor would he ever win a tournament of it, only if it was in Memphis.
But what did King Curtis do when he was known as King Curtis? That's what we're talking about.
When he was King Curtis? Well, when he was King Curtis, he a lot of what he wrestled was in Australia.
Okay, but we're talking
not Australia. Sorry, Australia. Anyways, it's one of those Aussie ones.
But we're talking about when he was known as King whatever, what did they do? And if you look at who had the better king reign, it's going to be Jerry the King Lawler, hands down.
Yes, but since this is a tournament, Lawler would never win the big one. That's against how he is a bad guy. It's like Ric Flair. He was there to lose more than he was there to win. Lawler, I believe, would actually give it to someone else. So I'm saying it's IKEA. That's for me. That's it, You're just, it's because Jerry Lawler is known worldwide, but it doesn't mean he was better.
So as King Curtis, he initially wrestled as
I wish I had a crown.
Curtis Ikea in his first run in Australia. The King Curtis tag was one that stuck as he feuded with Mark Lewin after becoming a fan favorite from the 70s. And then King Curtis feuded against Tiger Jeet Singh and the Tojo brothers from Japan. And King Curtis was a member of an alliance known as the People's Army. So those are some of the information that Chris Maloney is providing for us. Beforehand, I guess he was part of the Oakland Raiders camp, but got cut in 1960s. So I guess Maloney might be trying to sway my vote because I'm a Raiders fan. But
Hey, once you're a king, you're always a king.
Not that isn't how
Yes.
we're doing it though.
Well, yes, it is.
No, it's during only
Well,
when
I disagree with those. I'm going heel. Okay, I'm going heel for this guy. I'm going heel. That's all there is to it. Because hey, Jerry Lawler is probably going to win. I'm glad I'm actually second. If I was first would have been okay, but last I just would have been pissed off. So I'm happy.
it's all good. I have to agree with though Steven's points. Before Jerry Lawler became anything and was doing stuff with Jackie Fargo and all that, and his hero, he finally became king of Memphis, crowned himself basically, I guess, and that's what he's known by anywhere you go. And he has his restaurant there, but just the total reign of everybody knows Jerry the King Lawler. He took that to from Memphis to AWA to WWF, WWE, and is still known by it today. Tried numerous times to become a mayor, unsuccessfully failed. There's a couple of scandals, unfortunately, involved with him as well. But Jerry the King Lawler, in my opinion, is also moving forward, going against King Haku in the next round. So that was a 2-1 victory for Lawler. And Chris, I believe you were next.
I believe so.
For Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Bret the Hitman Hart.
All right. It is a little hard one, but for me, it's Triple H, King of Kings. I personally don't think he needed it, but it sure helped him as far as cool factor. Bret Hart, he didn't. I don't think he so much needed it because everyone kind of already knew he was a good wrestler. Like guys like Savage, they didn't need this, but he's one of the best ones because he's first pay-per-view one. But Triple H, I think, did more with it. And as far as a match between the two, unless it's in the 90s, Triple H is going to win every time. So for me, it's Triple H.
Well, to give some back history as well with this leading to their crownings, you have Bret Hart, who was the former WWE champion, and in 1993, he had it defended against Yokozuna at WrestleMania, and we know that he ended up losing it, but then 120 some odd seconds later, Zuna dropped it to Hulk Hogan. There was talk that Hogan was supposed to go against Bret at SummerSlam for the title, depending on whose story you believe. But I think in general, everybody knew that Bret was the right person to be leading the WWE at that time, regardless of Hogan magically showing back up and demanding to basically get the title back. So him becoming King of the Ring was a way for WWE to come up with a new pay-per-view that year, but giving it to him also sort of was like, okay, well, you're not WWE champion, but we still believe in you. Here's this sort of thing that you can boast about. Jerry Lawler was coming in time, so they were setting up one of their best wrestlers against Jerry the King Lawler. It fell into place really nicely, and that was sort of how it worked for Brett. It was more of a, we still believe in you. Don't hate us for giving the belt to Hogan, but we still like you. Don't be
Don't
mad
worry, we'll screw you later.
if you believe in that. But Hunter Hearst Helmsley, we talked a couple matches ago that he was supposed to win the 1996 King of the Ring, and because of the curtain call, he got basically demoted because he's the only one that could have been punished for the curtain call because Hall and Ash left and Shawn was your champion and Steve was in the right place, right time, and rest is history there. But that meant Hunter got pushed down and had to rebuild himself back up. He wasn't with Stephanie at the time. So for anybody to try and say that, oh, he only got to where he was because of Stephanie is lying to themselves, I would say, and just wanting to put that argument out there. He built himself back up because he was with China at that time. He got that goofy crown, had a great finals with Mick Foley, led to the battle with Foley and bringing out Dude Love in that case. But the crowning of Triple H was the confidence builder back to saying, okay, you paid your dues, we're back behind you, and his career built from there. I'm going Hunter Hearst Helmsley, moving on, and I don't know to read what Steven was okay with this or not, but is it 3-0 or 2-1?
2-1. I thought Bret Hart's a 2-time King of the Ring winner. Even though he lost the world title, him winning King of the Ring brought him back up to main event level. I just find that Bret Hart, neither of them needed the King of the Ring, but it took both of their careers to the next level. I picked Bret Hart because he's a 2-time winner, but I think it took them both to a new level. But I thought it took Bret Hart an extra level up back to the main event scene after he lost the world title, came back down a little bit, took him back to the top because he feuding with Jerry Lawler. It had the feud of the year, the King. I forget what they called it. It was like Kings. I just had it. It was feud of the year. It was billed like the King, Ultimate King or some undisputed King of the World Wrestling Federation. So I had Bret Hart, but
how does it feel? How does it feel? Huh?
I pick people.
Not going through. Steven!
Hey, I pick people we know. It's not my fault.
Okay, so in a 2-1 victory, Hunter Hearst Helmsley moves on, and he's going to battle the winner of this next matchup, the King of Awesome, Edge. 5-second pose. Taking on, oh yeah, the Macho King, Randy Savage, yeah. In my opinion, there's only one king, and that's the Macho King. I'm a huge diehard Macho Man fan, as everybody knows. He's the reason why I started watching, but it's another factor, just like we just talked about with Bret Hart. You drop the title, and instead of being pushed out to pasture and forgotten about, Randy Savage ended up taking the crown away from Jim Duggan, gave actual prestige to that title back from what Duggan was doing with it, with his cosplay, basically. And you had Queen Sherry there. He lasted basically 2 years with the King moniker because it wasn't too much after WrestleMania 5 that he was crowned. And he even had his brother, the Genius, proclaiming him the King of the Ring in his coronation. He used the scepter really well to take out the Ultimate Warrior and allow Slaughter to become champion. It led to the career-ending match of Savage versus Warrior, giving Warrior probably his best match, even better than WrestleMania 6 of Hogan versus Warrior. Savage versus Warrior, I felt was way better in that one, and just the prestige that Savage carried that distinction with for 2 years straight. Got to go with the Macho King, Steven.
Well, this was not a tough call for me. One made me want to watch wrestling, and one made me want to turn off wrestling. I'm going Savage because the Macho King was... You wanted to hate him because he hurt Miss Elizabeth, goddammit. And it's goddamn Miss Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
It took him to that, like, level. Edge, it just... Again, more comedy bullshit. Wouldn't do anything for me. Macho King moves on.
And Jonesy, is it a clean sweep?
Oh, of course it'd be Queen Sweep. And Queen Sherry, I mean, come on. She was like one of the best queens. And their entrances with both of them on the thingy and absolutely. Well, the where they get the 4 guys and they hold them up and walk them down.
The sedan, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Boom.
So yeah,
cutting in and out.
And that concludes round number 1 of our King of Kings tournament. Now, I think Chris Maloney is in the background, making sure all the stats are put in there to fill in the brackets and move it on. Hopefully you guys have been following along and did so too. Though we do want to give some, as I said, some honorable mentions to some participants that did not make the cut, including King Kong Bundy, King Maxwell, Silver King, King Kong Brody, the Kings of Wrestling, Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli, the Suicide Kings, Eddie Kingston and Drake Younger, King Mabel, Sheamus, King Corbin, Tito Santana, Billy Gunn, Ken Shamrock, the Magnificent Morocco, Ted DiBiase, Brock Lesnar, and the King of the North, Carter Mason, who was Steven's pick, and we were also trying to hope to get him on this show to be a panelist to make it a five vote discussion. And as I said, if it was possible to have gotten him into this discussion, it would have been definitely, it takes a king to know a king, and allow him to have his input on it. But unfortunately, whether it was our own timing or his timing, that didn't work out. But he was in consideration for being actually in this tournament. Steven, you picked him. Your thoughts on that? Or, yeah.
I just think that he the King of the North, from the entrance to the crown to he's believable. He lives it, which is, I've seen him for a few different independent organizations here in Ontario. He takes that moniker everywhere with him, even at a smaller one where he is known as King of the North. And that's his name that he goes by. It is,
all right.
Yeah,
Demand Lucha.
Demand Lucha. One of the first names that actually popped in my head when we were talking about this. He was one of the first names that popped in my head just because the name King of the North, he actually took. He lives the gimmick when you see him, whether you're getting a picture with him or just talking to him. He normally has that crown on, which always makes me laugh. So, I mean, he just was something. He was one of those names that I thought would be a dark horse for sure with some of these names, but, you never know how the draw is going. So he could have. I mean, I think he could have beat some of these guys, so it would have been interesting.
Yeah, Jonesy, I know there's a little discussion between you and...
You know what? I'm sorry. I've been really liking to do this, but the fact that Curtis Ike is out, I can't do this. I can't make these decisions anymore. So you know what? If someone else wants to take over, that's great. If not, I'm just gonna sit back and let you experts, okay? You experts do it.
He's just not flipping a table, at least. I was going to ask him if there was
Yeah.
anybody else that he saw of the honorable mentions that he would have loved to have seen in this, but Jonesy's going full heel on us. I don't know if Maloney's going to tag in or Jonesy's going to
He
just.
can tag. He can tag in. I'm just gonna go, and I'm. You know what? If he tries to tag me back in, I'll drop down, and just.
So we'll wait and see what's going on between the two Chris's. If Jonesy's going to heel out and leave us, and maybe just provide stats, and Maloney's tagging in, that's all good either
I'll
way.
stay, but I'll be vicious, man. I'll be vicious.
But in the second
Oh,
round,
thank God.
we're going to have William Regal taking on the King of Hearts, Owen Hart. King Harley Race against Stone Cold Steve Austin. King Haku against Jerry the King Lawler. Triple H against Randy Savage. Those are some interesting matchups, and I'm going to step away for a moment, find out what's going on between the two Chris's, who's tagging in, who's tagging out, and whoever it is, we'll find out in just a moment. But Steven will start off our first match in the second round.
This was an easier choice than I think it might be to some people. I am actually going with Owen Hart. Again, it took his career to the next level when he became King of Hearts. I found Regal, it just didn't do anything to help his career to move on up the ladder, where I think it took Owen Hart from lower mid card to main eventer really quick. Okay, so we know who's voting now. So I'm going Owen Hart. I just think it took his career to the next level.
Okay. And it looks like Jonesy is stormed off into the sunset. We might hear from him with some stats. We'll find out on our side chat here if we get any stats. But King Curtis, sorry about your luck. And Maloney, you're tagging in to pick up Owen versus Regal.
Yeah, I wasn't planned for this, so I'm kind of I was enjoying your guys' banter. Monday Night Raw just started, so and also I get to tag in. Yeah, beer's almost done, by the way. Good thing I didn't get a second, or I'd be slurring my words on this one. Anyways, let me see here. So we got William Regal, Owen Hart. I got to go with Owen Hart just simply because of the fact he is. When he became king, it basically transformed his character. He became looked at more seriously by wrestling fans as well as, any kind of journalist, whatever the case may be. When he took on that moniker, he finally got out of Bret's shadow, so to speak. William Regal, to me, he was always a great wrestler. He didn't really need the king moniker, but when it comes down to it, the fact is that helped elevate Owen, much the same it helped Steve Austin. So I don't know if we're going to go 3-0, but Owen Hart is my pick. Sean, who's your pick?
Well, we are definitely going 3-0. I love William Regal, all the things that he battled to save his life, basically, because when he was a man's man, he was really out of it. But he got it straight. He made the king the comedy that it needed to be, I guess, for that time period. It didn't hurt or hinder his career, I don't think. It just gave another aspect to it. But Owen Hart, it definitely took him from being in the shadow to being equal, if not better, than his brother Bret. And we saw what happened in '94 after Bret had got the title back, and at WrestleMania from Yokozuna. And then they had the blue steel cage at SummerSlam, and the family all involved, and all the shenanigans he did to cost Bret his title to Bob Backlund, the crying that Helen had over everything going on with Owen and having malaria. It's just a sickness. He'll get past it. And yeah, Owen just really made that character his own and was either, like I said, better or equal to his brother at that time. And so I'm definitely going with Owen. It's a clean sweep on that, with Owen advancing 3-0. And that means that, Chris, you get to go with Harley Race versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I loved Harley Race as a kid. To me, his feud with the Junkyard Dog, I don't remember his feud with Haku. I know that Haku became king, but I don't remember Race coming back. I'm going to have to YouTube that later. But King Harley Race, he went from NWA champion into this gimmick. He says, he in past interviews and stuff like that, he had said that that's why WWF wrestling fans know him as King Harley Race, to put him more on the map than the NWA championship days. But feuding him with the Junkyard Dog, the Heenan family obviously was a huge factor to it. But when you think about what that King thing, the gimmick, the moniker meant, it was the breakout of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Without that moment at King of the Ring, without that moment against Jake the Snake Roberts, Doc Hendricks interviewing him on that stage, and the whole big Austin 316 thing, without that, and Sean, I think you had mentioned with regards to the timing, Triple H was in the doghouse. You know what I mean? If that hadn't happened, we might not see Monday Night Raw taking place right now, the WWE Network. I don't know, to me, who's going to beat Austin in this tournament, honest to God. So the fact is, I love Harley Race. I love the King Harley Race gimmick. But the fact is, Stone Cold all the way.
Steven.
To me, it's Austin. It took Austin from the Ringmaster to Austin 316. So it took him from probably being released, I'm guessing, to the superstar, the one who put the company on his back and never looked back. So I'm going Austin, but I mean, Race, if we were talking world champion Harley Race, different story, but we're talking King, it's Austin.
Yeah, totally agree with you. We've said it numerous times, right time, right place for Austin. Like, it was such a huge moment, just him saying that the next night on Monday Night Raw, the whole arena was full of Austin 316 signs, and they had to quickly make those Austin 316 t-shirts just to appease the fans. Meanwhile, he was still rather much a heel at that moment, and just it was the fans who turned him officially at WrestleMania 13 against Brett. But there was really not much denying. He was almost the cool heel before the heels were cool, even before Hall and Nash. Like, it was around basically the same time, because Hall and Nash showed up in WCW at the end of May is when Hall showed up, and I think Nash showed up maybe a week or so before the King of the Ring, and they were just getting their footing there. But Steve Austin, as I said, was the cool heel before the Outsiders became the cool heels. So everything that happened afterwards is just amazing. And that stage, any other time wouldn't have happened. And yeah, Austin 3-0 going forward.
Magic in a bottle, as they used to call it.
Yeah. So that leads us to Steven, I believe. Are you up with Haku versus Lawler?
Yes. I think so.
Yeah, go with Haku versus Lawler.
This isn't as hard as some people might think. I mean, Jerry Lawler's been Jerry the King Lawler for 40 years. Started in the mid-70s. He's still known as it today. King Haku was great, took him to another level. But if I went through every title Jerry Lawler won as being known as the King, Looking at it really quick, he won 58 AWA Southern Heavyweight Champions, 10-time AWA Southern Tag Team Champions, 1-time AWA Heavyweight Champion, 2-time AWA Tag Titles. And I'm not even getting to Memphis Memphis Wrestling Southern Heavyweight Champion 58 times. As the king.
Book.
He is still, that was what he was doing when he was the king. So to me, Jerry Lawler, it took him from someone who may have had a small career, and it took him to the next level. He got to feud with Andy Kaufman. At one point there was, and I listened to Jim Cornette, shocking. Cornette was talking about back in the day, there was talk about Elvis and wanted to have a match with Jerry the King Lawler to have a match to be the moniker King of Memphis. Could you imagine back in the 70s the money that would have made?
Elvis in his jumpsuit.
I mean, it wouldn't have been a great. I mean, Lawler probably could have had a wrestling match with a broomstick, but it made it look good. But I mean, I'm going Jerry the King Lawler.
Yeah, actually, I just did the math here, and it should have been me, but I definitely agree with you. Jerry Lawler over Haku. I enjoyed the Haku King character for sure. It's unfortunate it didn't last as long as it could have, and it got dumped over to Duggan in a win in that case. But then he ended up teaming up with Andre and carrying Andre through the rest of his WWE career, basically. So they had a lot of faith in Haku, but a lot of those stats that you mentioned of how many championships Jerry picked up, all those other ones before you got to Memphis were not him holding the book. You know, anybody can book themselves to win the title every other week, like it almost happened in Memphis, and you had 58 title reigns. But when somebody like Vern Gagne is booking and giving you the championship, you know, it says something for you in that case. And by the time he came to WWE, his value wasn't necessarily in his in-ring work. As we saw, a lot of the time it was more comedic that they used him for, but he was hired because of his name and because they were needing somebody to talk and be the commentator. So they got to appease him by letting him still run his Memphis territory with Jerry Jarrett. They used it as a farm system as well, USWA. But yeah, Jerry Lawler overall beats King Haku in the best for being a king. And Chris, you want to wrap us up with this one?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I'll talk about my Lawler isms in the next round there. But Lawler's going on 3-0. I loved Haku, King Haku. I do believe it's another guy that was elevated because of the crown. The whole ceremony approach, I love that. You know, when you see the ring and he's sitting in the middle of it, Heenan stand by, and Jesse Ventura is on commentary, I think, with Gorilla, and all of a sudden, just they made him something. They took him out of that Islanders gimmick and made him into a single star. You know what I mean? And and Haku went with it. You know, from Duggan to, and I think somebody had mentioned he had fought Hulk Hogan for the championship. You know what I mean? That I completely forgot about, but it made the guy from the Islanders into somebody who, and this was before the internet, so nobody really realized he was tough as nails. But the fact is, when you see the gimmick, you see him with them, and it just made sense. It was like Harley Race again. But you're putting them. The problem is with, I shouldn't say problem with this tournament, but downside with this tournament is all of a sudden you got one guy who's becomes the king for whatever reason. He's given the gimmick, or next thing you know, he wins a tournament, whatever the case may be. Then you have a guy, as Steven was saying, 40 friggin' years. He's lived that gimmick. He's breathed that gimmick. That's who he is. He's named himself the king. But like I said, I'll get into my Jerry Lawler isms coming up. But yeah, Lawler, you can't go against him. I mean, we're getting down to Final Four. It's going to be tough for the first match, and we'll have to wait and see who faces Lawler here. But yeah, Lawler 3-0.
Okay. Well, I should have started the other one, so I'm going to start this one. Hunter Hearst Helmsley against the Macho King Randy Savage. I love everything that Triple H has done. I liked him when he came in as the Blue Blood. I recognized him from being Jean-Paul Levesque. Unfortunately, he was terrorizing with that lion's mane of hair that he had for that. But yeah, that night made him basically get, as I said before, gave him validation to still be there, even after everything that happened with the Click. We know what happened afterwards, where things went south with China, and he hooked up with Stephanie, and where he is right now running NXT. But his time as the King is definitely monumental for his establishing himself. But then you're going against Randy Savage. 2 years, King of the Ring, had great feuds with everybody from Ultimate Warrior, Dusty Rhodes, Duggan. I think he had brief time again with Hogan doing the King, because I think it was Macho King against Hulk Hogan, and they had it was supposed to be Tyson as the referee, but Tyson got defeated by Buster Douglas, and that was for a Saturday Night's main event, and he was still back into the main event picture, even doing that. You got to go with Randy Macho Man Savage, moving on to go against Jerry the King Lawler. Unless either of you two have different thoughts on this. But Maloney, your thoughts?
All right, Steven, sorry, but your vote is not going to count. And by the way, I got to correct you. It was the main event. I think it was the second and only main event in Saturday Night's main event history. There was the one where Andre won the title, and this was the second one that took place on a Friday. So, but yeah, Buster Douglas. Go back and Google it.
The third, because the following year with the Mega Powers exploding was on a Friday night as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was the main event as well. So anyways, long story short, fact is Savage took that character and ran with it. I mean, here's a guy who is, the Intercontinental Champion, and he ran with it. And all of a sudden he becomes tag team partners with Hulk Hogan as the Mega Powers. Then the Mega Powers explodes, and all of a sudden he becomes the King. He changed up the gimmick. The scepter changed things up. The crown that he wore was a completely different crown than all the rest. He added Queen Sherry to the mix. The same sort of thing, the whole coronation aspect of it. I will never forget being a huge fan of the Ultimate Warrior and that scepter coming into play at the Royal Rumble, allowing Sergeant Slaughter to win the title. I mean, I almost cried as a kid, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you damn Savage. And then all of a sudden watching WrestleMania, what was it, 6? No, 7. 7 against 7, right? Against the Warrior. Yep. And all of a sudden being like the edge of my seat, man, Savage can't win. Savage can't win. And the Warrior wins. And then, Savage comes back as the face of everything else. But like I said, he ran with that character. He took it to a new level. Savage was always evolving. You can go start to finish as far as Savage goes and see what he's done with every character presented, even right down to the WCW stuff that he was doing with Sid and Medusa and Gorgeous George and all that sort of stuff. But Savage, I mean, you talk about legacy, but as Macho King, he was a different element. And I remember getting that little action figure, the little Hasbro or whatever the heck it was. And like, holy crap, he's got the crown, he's got the scepter, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So anyways, Savage for the win in this one. But Steven, who's going to be your pick?
Savage. It took Savage to the next level. Everything about Savage it just took him to that level. So it wasn't actually a tough call for me on this one.
And yeah, this is quite interesting because that ends round number 2, and there was zero disagreement on it. Everybody went 3-0 into the next round. Owen Hart won 3-0. Steve Austin 3-0, and they're in battle in the next round. We saw them at SummerSlam 97 in the Oops Pile Driver Gone Wrong. situation, and then we get Jerry the King Lawler against Savage, and fans of Southern Wrestling would have seen that happen down there when both of them were getting their careers started, essentially. So some matches that actually happen in real life are coming back to happen in our Fantasy Warfare tournament, and I definitely assume that there's no surprises going into this round of who advanced. Maybe if different matchups would have happened, could have been a slight bit different, but then we're probably seeing these matchups happening in that last round. Any thoughts on going in before we dive head first?
I'm not looking forward to making these two picks.
Yeah, these are actually really tough.
It doesn't really matter how you mix them or match them up. The fact is, you're still gonna have a hard time no matter what. So I'm just glad I'm not going first this round. At least I don't think I'm going first.
But I think this is why we do this, because these are the four. I mean, this is probably one of our best semifinals where we don't really have an idea who's going to win out of everything we've done.
Well, Sean's going Savage all the way. It's just a matter of me and you voting Lawler. But like I said, I'm undecided on both both picks here.
You are starting the third round. Sorry about you. To quote, I think it's Beer Money. Sorry about your damn luck.
All right. So Owen Hart versus Steve Austin. The Austin character wouldn't exist without that King of the Ring moment. That has been said multiple times on this show. However, Owen Hart, the King of Hearts, getting out of Brett's shadow. That SummerSlam steel cage match where all of a sudden you saw the return of Jim the Anvil Neidhart and the British Bulldog. You saw sides kind of, splitting up, and it made for some magic moments. I think there was at SummerSlam, I think 94, I believe, when that happened.
Both Hearts against each other in steel cage? Yes.
Yeah, SummerSlam 94. That was also the one with Taker versus Taker, but we won't talk too much about that. But anyways, guys, to me, if you've got the defining moment of Stone Cold Steve Austin becoming Stone Cold, but in saying that, yes, Austin 316 was created, but you never really heard him talk about being the king. Really going into his character, you never heard about him talking. It was more the announcers talking about that moment. It's more the wrestling fans talking about that moment. You know what I mean? It was like that first T-shirt that came out said King Austin, or whatever the case may be. It was just simply Austin 316 on the black T-shirt with white logo. When you think of Owen Hart, to me, anyways, to this day, and this is 21 years after he's passed away, he is still the King of Hearts. It's not the Blue Blazer. It's not the Rocket. To me, it's always going to be the King of Hearts, and his niece Natalia goes by the Queen of Hearts. You know what I mean? So that meant so much to him. It meant getting out of his brother's shadow. And to me, thinking back to 1994 in SummerSlam, the fact is Owen Hart to me had a chance of beating Brett in that steel cage. It's to me, it's tough, but I got to go Owen Hart with this one.
Steven, you're next.
You're going to have to break the tie. Don't get me wrong. I think Owen Hart, it took his career to the next level, but I took Austin from nothing really to superstar overnight. Without him winning the King of the Ring, we are probably talking about WCW, and WWE's gone. I do not see, if Austin doesn't win King of the Ring, if history changes and Triple H doesn't join the curtain call, I don't think WWE makes it, because it doesn't take off with Austin 316, and it doesn't happen if he doesn't win King of the Ring. So to me, it's Austin. It took that career off, and that would be the defining moment right then and there, is when he won the King of the Ring. That everyone can still hear Austin 316 says, "I just kicked your ass," and that it's Austin for me. But it's a tough call. You could go either way, and So good luck, Sean.
Yeah, I definitely need good luck. People know how much I love Steve Austin as well. I've mentioned numerous times. First merchandise I bought, got the hat, got the shirt, got the video, Blood from a Stone, and all this other stuff. Owen Hart was my favorite Hart of all of them. Even as a Blue Blazer, when he came back and was doing the taxi cab baggy pants with both Jim and with Coco. When he broke out, it was just that moment. And then my birthday, Owen passing away 2 days after my birthday, and we were doing the birthday party, just watching Over the Edge. Jonesy and I were. It's such a hard call, but Owen carried that for the whole year using it. I think he continued using the King of Hearts throughout that time, but Austin only needed that one night, regardless of calling himself king or not. People knew he won the tournament, but it didn't matter. He used his platform for the greater good. I'm going to go with Stone Cold Steve Austin advancing. As much as it hurts to go against Owen, Steve Austin is moving on to the finals. 2-1 victory. Very slim 2-1 victory. If we could do a triple threat, but then we'd have an issue again with them against each other. So Austin moves on. And Steven, you get to start Lawler versus Savage.
So I was doing a quick little research here. First time they actually fought was in June 3rd, 1985 in the Mid-South Coliseum in a loser-leave town match for the Southern Heavyweight title. 11,000 fans turned out to see the local idol battle the unpredictable Madman in a bout with no disqualifications. Lawler nearly lost an eye in a physical brawl. And just like then, he beat Savage with the pile driver. I'm picking Jerry the King Lawler. Like I said in the last round, he's lived this gimmick for 40 years. He has hundreds of championships all over the world. If he didn't become the king of Memphis at the time, he would not have been he just wouldn't have been his career wouldn't have been the same. Savage would have still gotten back to where he was, which probably would have been a little different. But I think Lawler even now, if Savage, you think of the Macho Man, Jerry Lawler, you think of Jerry the King Lawler. So to me, it's Lawler. I mean, this is another tough decision, but I'm going Lawler. I already know where Sean's going. So
Yeah,
really, Maloney's going to be the decision in this.
Yeah, Maloney's going to have to break the tie on this one because as much as Jerry Lawler has done everything he did, I was not a fan of Jerry the King Lawler. When he got brought in and everything, he was the heel. I didn't like him. Just a lot of his style. He made a great commentator with Jim Ross. But, it's also the same guy who was a grown man sitting at a commentating desk going, "Puppies! Puppies!"
But you have to think of from mid-70s, if you really watch, and yeah, we'd have fun on YouTube. If you watched a lot of what he could do, it was insane. And I know neither of you guys are big Southern wrestling fans, but I mean, I can't wait to wear the shirt that I've ordered.
I would love to see some old Mid-South stuff. Definitely wanting to do that. It just wasn't available here. But I am going with Savage and Maloney. You get to break the tie.
All right, so Sean, you're gonna last the whole show. Yeah, we'll have to get to that story because we mentioned it on TNT, but we haven't officially mentioned it on this show. But we'll wait till the end of the show so Sean can tell his story why he got off the air so quick last time we had done this. But anyways, you gotta understand something. I grew up in the Maritimes. I grew up in New Brunswick. So to me, we had Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling that was on. I don't know if you guys got that in Ontario. Seldomly we'd have WWF, except for the fact that Saturday Night's Main Event was on. I would stay up as a kid, 12:30 at night. It would launch and then go till 2 a.m. And but WWF, besides the VHS tapes and stuff like that, was few and far between. Then you go to TSN. TSN used to feature the AWA. TSN used to feature Calgary Stampede Wrestling. TSN also used to feature this show hosted by this guy named Ed Whalen called Pro Wrestling Plus. I used to love that show. The format, I think he had Gordon Soley part of that show at times as well. But you'd see clips from the USWA. Because of that, I knew who the Von Erichs were. I knew who Jerry the King Lawler was, AWA, of course, as well. I knew, of course, who am I missing? The Freebirds, King Kong Brody, guys like that. So to me, besides that in the magazines, I'd always hear about this Jerry the King Lawler guy. And then the more historical value you hear about it, it's like, holy crap, he fought Andy Kaufman, He was basically the AWA version of Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. And I'll never forget watching an AWA promo and he's challenging Hogan and Flair to come over, say, hey, come fight me in the AWA ring. Back in the days of the AWA, you had the Midnight Rockers, you had guys like the Road Warriors, but Baron Von Raschke, used to love that guy. And then all of a sudden you had this guy named Mr. Perfect, who before then was named Kurt Hennig. One of the biggest feuds I think I've seen as far as the title went was between him and Jerry the King Lawler. So Sean, you can sit there and talk about your puppies and what he was on commentary, but the fact is, when it comes right down to it, to me, Savage was, like I said, a good king because of the fact he went with that gimmick and he ran with that gimmick. But you don't want to talk about gimmicks. Here's somebody who Stephen was talking about back in the 1970s, drew 11,000 people to want to have, and this was back in the days where fans would bring weapons and try to stab you, as you're leaving the venue. You'd have to have police escorts. And the more you hear about Jerry the King Lawler, the fact is, the more you realize that beyond wrestling, as a promoter, as a personality, as somebody who I didn't know Elvis might have wanted to fight one day. I mean, that's huge. That's like back in the days of Muhammad Ali. I think he fought Gorilla Monsoon or was part of something like that. But like I said, I grew up in the Maritimes, and when I was a kid, about 10 years old, started hearing the name Jerry the King Lawler. His legacy, just, nothing to say about who he is now and some of the comments that he makes, but the fact is, his legacy in the wrestling business, you can't, when you mention kings of wrestling, he is top 3 at least. So, fact is, you broke my heart putting Owen Hart out of this, so I'm going to break your heart. See you later, Savage.
Okay, so that brings us to our finals. Been seeing down in our bottom part, Jonesy is still hanging around, hopefully cooling off from his defeat of King Curtis. Jonesy, you've been watching everything going on. What do you think of what happened in the second round with everybody getting a 3-0 sweep? Would you have had anything with you there?
You know what? I agree with Lawler and Austin, but Savage is such a much better wrestler. Anyways, but it's during their kingdoms, so there you go.
Any surprises of the Final Four? Would you have had anybody else different?
No, probably not. I would have fought for Haku a little bit more, but Austin, what you gonna do?
And so, of course, down to Austin and Lawler. Yeah, it sounds like you would have picked being Austin Savage. If you'd,
I don't know. I'd probably still go with Lawler, but that one would have been hard. I'm glad I left.
Yeah, some of these matchups have definitely been interesting to say at the very least how they come about. And Jonesy, you're trying to show us a picture that's not overly clear.
That's Omega.
Oh, Kenny Omega.
That is the unconfirmed king of wrestling right there, Kenny Omega.
and he has a message for Steven. What is the message for
To say,
Steven?
let it go, Steven.
No, this for
This is for you, Steven.
See, he's in his usual pose, but he's giving you the bird.
I'm sorry, I didn't recognize him with the jazz hands.
And the thong and baby oil.
Exactly. I didn't recognize him. I'm sorry.
Excellent. So we are moving on to the finals. I'm going to keep you in here, Jonesy. You can decide if you're going to vote or if Chris is going to continue the vote.
No. Hold on. I'm interrupting right now. So the fact is, he tagged me in unannounced, so I'm tagging him in unannounced.
Oh, okay. Or we can rock, paper, scissors it.
Okay, that's better than what I thought you were doing.
No, that would be down here.
Kenny Omega fan, so I figured that's what you guys are into.
All right, so I'm going back around. Jones, this is all you. So final setup: Lawler versus Austin.
And I'm going to start this one off because it's my turn. And yeah, not hard to pick. Everybody can do it blindfolded. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin. The amount of legacy and history that Jerry Lawler had, going from territory to territory, all the titles, cannot compare to that one night on stage to keep a company alive. Basically, if it wasn't for that moment, we've said it numerous times, we could be watching WCW Nitro right now instead of Monday Night Raw. If even that would still exist, because we saw what happened in the fact that WCW wanted to get Russo over there, and yeah, it was crash and burn TV again, and who knows if they would have survived even after beating the WWE, because they would have been their own worst enemies. That one speech helped turn the ship around, and I'm going with Stone Cold Steve Austin to be the King of Kings. Now, Steven, your pick. Jonesy might have the tiebreaker or not.
So this is a very tough one for me. Just doing quick little research. Can anyone guess how many titles Jerry Lawler's held as the king?
Oh, probably like 200-ish.
Jonesy, any idea?
I know it's a lot. I thought his won the USWA. I honestly thought it was close to 100, was it not?
He won the Memphis total 58 times. He has 140 champions.
I don't know if you still can, but I remember Lawler's website has old Memphis wrestling episodes, tons of them.
Yeah, it still has it. He's won 140 different titles under the name Jerry the King Lawler. He's also won Feud of the Year in 92, 93. He won Most Hated Wrestler, 93 and 95. This is a weird one. Most Inspirational Wrestler in 1988 and 2012. In 1982, he was number 7 on the top 500 top single wrestlers. In 2003, he was still ranked 23. In 2003, him and Bill Dundee were ranked top 56 out of 100 top tag teams, which you would never think. He was Wrestler of the Week from December 6th to December 12th, 1987.
Wrestler of the Week? No way.
Yeah, I know. Shocking. He was inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum in 2011. Hold on. I got to keep going. WWE Hall of Fame in 2007. In Wrestling Observer, even though I don't like Dave Meltzer. Best Commentator, 95-96. Feud of the Year, 1987. 1992, 1993. He was also inducted into the Observer's Hall of Fame in 96. I mean, his career of 40 years have lasted, but I'm still going Austin because that one night changed wrestling history forever. Don't get me wrong, Jerry the King Lawler deserves to be in the top 2, but Austin changed the wrestling landscape forever the night he won the King of the Ring.
And Jonesy.
I would have voted Lawler. I would have voted Lawler.
Really?
And if it wasn't for that speech, yeah, we don't know the story. But you know what? As far as the king, he didn't really even accept it. Like Lawler is it, whether he was a bad guy or a good guy. That's why it would be Lawler in the end. But hey, you guys want to pick Austin. And I thought he was going to pick Lawler. I was selling. He was selling it like I was selling IKEA, but he could back it up more. But so hey, I would have gone with Lawler.
I thought you were going to be a tiebreaker, to be honest. And so, as you see, right down below, the winner and King of Kings, according to this round of tournament. If it shuffled out differently, it could have a different answer. But Stone Cold Steve Austin is your King of the Ring. Guys, overall thoughts about this one?
So I'll hold on. I'm going to start because my vote didn't count. The reason me and Jones can tag team because we both share the same first name. That's the rule of this show. So, and anyways, yeah, I
yeah, the Chris rule.
But yeah, I would have picked Lawler as well, but I still would have been outvoted. But guys, yeah, if you're listening to this on audio, check us out patreon.com/TN Throwdown If you're watching on YouTube, check us out, same address, patreon.com/TN Throwdown Before we get Stevens and Jonesy's thoughts, Sean, feeling better from last week. So guys, if you're watching the show, we're doing last week. I had no freaking clue what the heck was going on with Sean. All I know is the moment I put end broadcast, Sean is like getting up, going up the stairs, and next thing he goes, I gotta go, guys. And like Steven and I just kind of like, okay, what the hell? So I text messaged Sean to find out what the hell is going on. And Sean, you had a little bit of a scare with this thing called COVID, from what I understand.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what it was. If people are watching last episode, I'm barely hanging in there as we're getting to the latter stages of the round. So I'm just like, oh, God, let's move this along, guys. I made it through, but yeah, as soon as we were done, I was like, I'm done. And yeah, I had a horrible night that time. I woke up with a fever. I got told by work to go get a COVID test, so I had to wait for that to come back. It came back negative. But yeah, I just felt really bad and almost didn't make it through the last episode of this. So thankfully I did. We made it through.
So did you have to chuff, or did you have to other things?
Well, since you're asking,
You don't have to say what came out, but you could,
I almost did, but I didn't. I made it. I felt more like I was going to pass out than anything. But we are talking about...
You can't take a computer with you to the toilet?
You don't want to see this on YouTube, regardless of it happened. And if I passed out, yeah, you guys, Maloney would have been on the other end going, oh my God. And
so, Sean, Christine,
with my wife.
Christine wants to know what the actual test involves, because she read something today about it's like 10 seconds of a cotton swab up the nose.
Oh, we'll talk about it off air because it ain't fun.
Well, this I can do it quickly. It's like it's a nice little journey. The space shuttle's going up, and then it hits the wall, and it's like being stung, and then they twist, and then they pull out, and you're just like almost as though they popped your sinus for a moment because you're just worried that your nose is going to start leaking all over the place, but it doesn't. But like that's about it, and you're done.
They take a brain biopsy, I swear, when they're up there. It's not fun, not at all.
So, in case you're needing to get a test, and hey, a lot of attractions in Ontario and throughout the world are closed right now, so you can't go to places like Marineland or the CN Tower or Skydome or anything like that, but you can go to your local health unit and get the COVID test
They have
all for
COVID
free.
They can get COVID testing right outside of the CN Tower because, well, I was down there today.
Finally, something I've been into long before. I love putting stuff up
Yeah,
my nose.
that was usually your finger and not a cotton swab. So, yes,
Here,
guys,
let me do that for you, Lee.
thank you everybody for joining us on the King of Kings episode. As you heard, you can be part of Patreon. If you sign up, money is going to go towards charity. We're hooking up with Cody Diener and his Giver for Charity. He just raised $1,400 for the Rumble Camp for the Deaf. And if you're also looking to help raise some money, at the start of the show, we saw a commercial for the Scumbags of Wrestling t-shirts designed by Nigel Lewis. Comic design with 22 talent of the Ontario scene, $30 for your shirt, $15 for poster, and you're helping out the Children's Hospital or Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto and helping Steven's wrestling journey with the Chiari malformation cause.
Sean's still pissed that Savage got booted out.
Yeah, still thrown off by that. But yes, Chiari malformation. Steven, 8-year-old little guy from the GTA area, fighting that, and they're doing research. He has an upcoming MRI scheduled, I think, later on this month, and then next month is his birthday. So, yeah, he loves the shirt. You're going to love it as well. He's going to get one, and money raised from it is going to help go at least to Sick Kids for the research.
Yeah, he's Steven's got a Facebook page as well as a YouTube channel as well. I saw today, I think Brody Lee had done something with regards to the AEW title. I haven't watched the video yet, but huge wrestling fan, and you know, all we can do is thoughts and prayers, and you know, and hopefully something happens that he does get better. But what Sean's doing is absolutely amazing. Are we breaking the news on what's coming up next for Fantasy Warfare? We're gonna wait till TNT.
Well, this will be out after, so it won't matter, will it?
No, I guess because we're exclusive to Patreon, this won't be go on YouTube for a couple of weeks.
I think we save it for Thursday.
Do it on TNT.
Well, because it's a big announcement.
Okay,
we have Endeavor for July.
So is this bigger than Virgil in the one of the first tournaments?
Oh fuck!
I guarantee this. I guarantee Kenny Omega will be part of the next Fantasy Warfare tournament. Guaranteed. And then you will see me and Steven get at it. So, but I guarantee if Jim Cornette could be part of that, he'd probably have him as well. Sean, you open the show. You want to close down the show. Jones, thanks for being part of this. Hopefully you're not too pissed off about courtesy IKEA. But
oh, no, I'll get over it. I was actually, I was just doing trivia questions, and I came across his name, and it's like, oh, it's the Dungeon of Doom guy, and I didn't realize how many. Sorry, my cat. How many things he actually did, and he was. He was more than just that comedy blob.
It will always be known as that. That's the unfortunate part.
Yeah. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us, whether you're listening to us audio wise or on YouTube. We thank you. We'll be back next week with another episode. Be looking on the Scumbags Wrestling Facebook page for what that topic is going to be. Maybe you can be a part of helping us decide what that topic is going to be also. And we'll be back with another episode very shortly. And be sure to tune into TNT on Thursday nights, and you'll find out what our big announcement for July is going to be. So thank you.
Puppies.
Didn't we already do that? But thank you, Chris and Steven. And until next time, have a good one.